Welcome to the 49ers Camelot show. I'm excited to have you, excited to have everybody here. So, what we're going to do is go through the 49ers Webzone Mailbag, our most recent edition of it, to talk about, uh, go through some of the questions and answer those. But before we do, I want to get into some of what we saw yesterday when Kyle Shanahan spoke. He spoke on Wednesday to the media and had some updates as far as roster moves and things like that. So let's talk about that real quick. Sorry about that. The 49ers signed defensive lineman Sebastian Joseph Day. This could be an indication that Eric Armstead's going to be out for a while. We'll talk about that here shortly. They re-signed offensive lineman Matt Pryor as well. So that's a positive thing because with the 49ers offensive line situation, they're going to need some help. And we're going to talk about that here shortly. They waived running back Jeremy McNichols. They also signed offensive lineman Sebastian Gutierrez. So two Sebastians they signed. They released Willie Snead, but then they re-signed him back to the practice squad. And one of the things that I think 49ers fans are going to be excited about is that they opened the practice window for wide receiver Danny Gray. So a lot of people ask about Danny Gray and when he might be able to play. So his practice window's open, so maybe we'll see Danny Gray hit the field. I know the 49ers would love to get him uh, going because, look, they need that deep speed threat. They don't currently have that, and so I think that they would love to have somebody like Danny Gray on the field, uh, clearing out routes, taking safeties with him, so that would open up a lot of the underneath stuff more. Um, and who knows? I don't know if Danny Gray is the kind of guy you want to put back there to return punts. But maybe they want to try him out at punt returner or even kick returner. I think Deebo Samuel's been great back there, but do you really want Deebo back there returning punts that often? I mean kickoffs. I don't think that you do, just because you don't want to increase his chances of getting hurt. But that'll be an interesting thing to see what with what happened with Ronnie Bell, put the ball on the ground yet again on another punt return. Maybe we're going to see somebody. Maybe Juszczyk's going to be back there. Maybe um, Brandon Ayuk. Maybe Danny Gray comes onto the scene and he ends up playing some punt returns. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But let's jump into the mailbag and see what we can take away. So here's the first question from Andy. Can Brock Purdy perform well behind? Seems like if we don't have a lead, he rushes and mistakes happen. Can he stay calm and lead the team to victory? Well, look, I on one hand, I think that Brock Purdy wasn't very good on Monday night. But yeah, also have to keep in mind that he wasn't that bad. I mean, I heard Greg Cosell talking about this earlier today, where he said, look, the 49ers in the first half had 230 yards of offense. If things would have gone normal and you wouldn't have had all of those turnovers, they probably would have had 500 yards on offense on the day against maybe the best defense in the league. So for all those that are saying that Brock Purdy was terrible, yes, he was terrible as far as the turnovers. That first interception was a bad decision. Wasn't necessarily a bad throw, just a bad decision. I think that Troy Aikman said that was Purdy's third read in the progression, and Aikman said if that had been his first or second read, it would have been a touchdown. But it was his third read, so Purdy was a little bit late getting that ball out. And because of that, the safety was able to cut in front of Deebo Samuel and pick off the pass. So then you look at the second interception. It was a tipped ball that was just kind of a fluky play. The third one was another bad decision. I mean, that was the one where McCaffrey was called for the chop block. Purdy said that he saw the flag, figured it was against the 49ers, should have just thrown it away, but instead he tried to force it into Kittle, actually bounced Kittle and into the arms of a Ravens defender. And then that pass, the last interception was he was hit. Colton McKivitz let the blocker or the pass rusher through. Purdy was hit as he was releasing the ball, and it kind of flopped up in the air and another interception. So on one hand, yeah, he was bad, but on the other hand, he also wasn't too bad. Now, I feel like he wasn't quite as accurate as he normally is, but to me, the bigger issue was that he looked kind of jittery in the pocket, especially in the second half. I remember a play where he threw the ball and kind of you could just see that he was bracing for the hit. That's not something that Brock Purdy usually does. And so I just think it was one of those fluke games. Troy Aikman even mentioned at one point that he thought that Purdy was seeing too much color. In other words, that he's seeing things that aren't there, maybe seeing some ghosts, whatever, however you want to put that. But every quarterback has a bad game, and this was probably Purdy's worst. The Cleveland Browns game, which was previously his worst, I mean, that game at the end of the game when he had to get his team into field goal range for the win, he did. And so to me, that was impressive that he had a terrible game in Cleveland and still put them in an opportunity to win. Um, so yeah, I think that I think a part of his issue is that he just hasn't been behind that often. And so to me, that's part of the issue. Um, not like I just don't think I think it's too early to say Brock Purdy can't come from behind to win. I just think that's too early to say that kind of thing at this point. Next question is from Niner Jim. Do you think Eric Armstead's plantar fasciitis might make this his last season, or is it curable? I don't think that Eric Armstead's foot injury is career threatening. But it does concern me a little bit that the 49ers don't seem to have a grasp on when he could return. And part of that is the injury itself. It's just hard to determine, how when is this gonna get better? How's it gonna get better? I know that it can. It just takes rest. It takes staying off of it. Um, but I think that that's probably one of the reasons why the 49ers on Tuesday agreed to terms with Sebastian Joseph Day. Um, Probably a good fill-in for the 49ers until Armstead's back, and then even when Armstead does come back, you have a pretty good rotation there on the defensive front, especially defensive tackle with Hargrave, Armstead, Kinlaw, and now Joseph Day. So I think that's gonna be the plan. To me, I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Armstead doesn't return until after the regular season. So if the 49ers are able to keep that, home field advantage, then what I would see happening is that they would uh, keep Eric Armstead out for the rest of the regular season, have that bye week in the first round of the playoffs, and then that would give Armstead about 6 weeks that he's not been making things worse, so he's been able to rest and recover some at that point for about 6 weeks. And so hopefully he can come back in the playoffs and be rested and fired up and ready to go. But it wouldn't surprise me if that's what the 49ers do. Keep Armstead out for the rest of the regular season. Uh, yeah, I mean, I am concerned about that Rams game. I'll talk more about that next week. But the Rams are red hot. And right now, the 49ers are in a situation where they're probably going to have to win every game. So if the Eagles beat the Cardinals on Sunday, and if the Lions beat the Cowboys, then the 49ers are going to go into week 18 needing to beat the Rams. And so, and it's possible that week that both of those teams could lose, and the 49ers don't even have to win that game. But right now, The way it's set up is that the 49ers have to win both of these last games. So that's where we're at right now. I mean, it, I think the Eagles are going to beat the Cardinals, but it is possible that the Cardinals could win. They can run the ball, and I don't know if the Eagles can stop the run very well. Um, with the Cowboys, that game is at home against the Lions. And so the Cowboys are better at home. So it's very possible that Dallas will beat Detroit on Sunday, which would basically knock Detroit out of contention for that top seed. And so then the 49ers just have to worry about finishing with at least the same record as the Eagles. Let's see. Next question. This is from Tony. How long are the 49ers offensive line injury woes expected to last? Given that before the game versus the Ravens began, it was comprised of Trent Williams and then spare parts to the right of him, and now it's uniformly poor sans Williams. What are the options? Will Williams and Banks be recovered by next week? Well, so the 49ers signed Matt Pryor. Um, they released him. Now they've brought him back. So Pryor will be there. But here's the thing: they lost Trent Williams to a growing injury. He says that he's fine, and the really good news is that the 49ers have listed him as limited. So on Wednesday at practice, he actually practiced. He was limited, but that's a positive sign and looking like Trent Williams will be able to play on Sunday. Jalen Moore has a concussion, so he's going to have to go through the concussion protocol. That's a multi-step thing. And so the fact that they played on Monday night and essentially have one less day for him to recover makes it unlikely that Jalen Moore will be ready for Sunday. Aaron Banks has a toe injury. No word on his availability. He did not practice on Wednesday. So I would say that right now, I would expect Williams to play. I would expect Banks to not play, which I would think would put John Feliciano at left guard and then Spencer Burford back at right guard. So that's at least somewhat better than what they ended up with last on Monday night. Next question is from Brenda. She says it was just a loss. We will bounce back, but I would like to know how our guys are. Any major injuries? I hope they heal up if there were any. So on Wednesday, Kyle Shanahan addressed the non-Trent Williams injuries as well. And so I mentioned Banks did not practice. Juwan Jennings is still in the concussion protocol. I would say there's a good chance that Jennings could play Sunday. I'm a little surprised that he wasn't good to go on Monday night, but every player progresses through the concussion protocol differently. I mean, it not only depends on the person, but it depends on the severity of the injury. And so, Jennings' hit obviously was not good and was not light enough. Maybe that's a way to put it. That he was able to still play on Monday night, but he could be good to go. Certainly hope so because I feel like they really missed him on Monday night. Eric Armstead, we talked about has a foot injury. Nothing new to report on him. Ross Dwelly has an ankle. He's good to go. Elijah Mitchell with the knee. He's good to go. Oren Burks has a knee injury. He was limited. I would say all three of those, Dwelly, Mitchell, and Burks, have a really good chance to play on Sunday. Now, here's the one that we didn't know about. Safety Jair Brown has a knee sprain. He did not practice on Wednesday, and Shanahan seemed a little concerned that this might be a long-term issue. Um, so it'll be interesting if Jair Brown can't play, who's going to step in there? Is it going to be one of these backup safeties? I can't see them bringing somebody else in there. Ambry Thomas left the game with a hamstring. He was limited. So if they're limited, then they're at least practicing some, just on a limited basis. So usually a limited player has a good chance to play. So Ambry Thomas should be good. Deebo Samuel has a neck injury, so he should be fine. Javon Hargrave has the hamstring, of course. He was limited. Brock Purdy has the stinger in his shoulder, and he's good to go. So, um, so a lot of injuries really starting to mount up, but some of these guys are going to be good to go when they come back. Joshua asks, "Why didn't we utilize Brandon Ayuk in the first 3 quarters?" Well, it's interesting because I was saying the same thing because in the 4th quarter at one point, Brandon Ayuk, 1 catch and 1 penalty. Not really what you want to see from your star receiver like that. But the offense was just a mess at times. Yeah, they were moving the ball really well, but those turnovers hurt, and then things started getting out of hand. So, Purdy was struggling, with the interceptions. The offensive line was struggling, and that's obviously going to affect everyone, even receivers. Now they did start getting the ball to Ayuk in the 4th quarter, and he ended up with 6 catches for 113 yards. But I agree. Waiting until the 4th quarter, that's just too late. Brandon Ayuk's way too good to not be more involved in the game plan. Ron didn't really ask a question here in our mailbag, but he did make a statement that was interesting enough that I thought that I included. He said, "Darnold is the better quarterback, but still a backup." So he's saying that Sam Darnold is better than Brock Purdy. And I have to completely disagree here. Just because Sam Darnold came into the game, completed some passes, drove down the field, scored a touchdown on a day that Brock Purdy had his worst game, doesn't make Sam Darnold better. You have to remember that Darnold was playing against a softer defense because of this by that point, the game was kind of out of reach, and so um, he wasn't really seeing the same defense that Brock Purdy was. Now, to his credit, Darnold did lead him down for a touchdown. Then right there at the end, he had a chance. If he hadn't thrown that interception, he had a chance that if they could have got in the end zone, they would have been within 7 points. And who knows if you kick an onside kick and actually recover it, then you have a prayer's chance of tying the game. So that was pretty impressive, and I guess that's kinda one thing that I took away from this game is that even though the offense turned the ball over 5 times, they still put up a lot of yards. They moved the ball really well, and so I think that that has to be taken into consideration. The other thing is that, you look at the fact that the game essentially was a blowout. I mean, in the 3rd quarter, the 4th quarter, it just wasn't close anymore. And yet the 49ers ended up in the end with a chance to potentially tie the game if they would have they had to score the touchdown, recover an onside kick. But still, the fact that they were in that position, I thought was impressive considering how poorly they had played. Andy asked, "Why doesn't Kyle use Mason on goal line runs?" It just seemed like a no-brainer when they had the ball at the 2 to give it to Mason to punch. I mean, I can understand that thought. I mean, Mason is bigger, more bruising back, but the guy he backs up, Christian McCaffrey, is the best running back in the league. McCaffrey has great vision, which makes him effective in those short yardage situations, and he's really strong himself. And so, even though Mason seems like the perfect short yardage back, Christian McCaffrey's not too bad at it either. Now, I would say that I'd like to see Mason in some of those situations just to see how he is, but especially with Elijah Mitchell coming back this week, I don't know that Mason's gonna get those opportunities. With McCaffrey there, I seriously, I don't see that happening, but, um, it is an interesting thing to think about. Thane, writes, "I can accept the loss and Purdy having a bad day, partly unlucky, partly bad day. But what gets me is one single play that continues to happen over and over with Shanahan. On an important 4th and 1, instead of pounding the ball inside and taking the first, He once again gets cute and tries to fake the defense and roll out Purdy only to get crushed on the edge. He got bailed out on the defensive penalty, but still, when will Shanahan ever learn? I'm not sure if this is exactly the play that I remember, but I do remember a 4th and 1 where it was kind of a bootleg situation where Purdy, it looked like he had the option to run or pass. Kyle Juszczyk was open on that. The problem was as soon as Purdy, faked the handoff and started rolling, there's somebody in his face, and he wasn't able to get the pass off. So, uh, had that worked a little bit better, I think that people would be praising the call. I liked the call, even though it didn't work. I still liked it because I kind of felt like the Ravens were gonna be looking for a run middle on 4th and 1. But still, you know, anytime the play doesn't work, it's gonna get criticized, but I actually liked the play. Niner Jim asks, "1st and goal from the 1 in the 4th quarter, patched up offensive line, why not run it 4 times with McCaffrey, Juice, or Mason?" Well, I think probably he's talking about, toward the end of the game when Sam Darnold led him down there and threw the interception after he took the sack. I'm guessing the amount of time on the clock probably was a factor. I mean, if you run the ball and you don't get in and the clock keeps going, where at that point, if they throw the ball, you're looking at it's either gonna be caught in the end zone for a touchdown or it's gonna fall incomplete and the clock's gonna stop. Or in this case, then Sam Darnold throws an interception, but, it's also possible that the coaches felt like that was the best that that patched up offensive line had a better chance of pass blocking than they did run blocking. I don't know that, but that might have been their thinking, and then their thinking might have been, "Look, we have McCaffrey, we have Debo, we have Kittle, we have Ayuk. Surely one of those guys can get open in time to score." So, I don't really know what the thinking was there, but I I really didn't have an issue with I mean, you know, on that 3rd down, I think that Sam Darnold got got rid of the ball before he got sacked. Um, so that was kind of a bad sack there. On 4th down, you can't run the ball at that point, you have to throw it, so, it is what it is. Ed asked, "In your estimation, how big of a wake-up call was this 49ers awful loss to Baltimore, and how much of the 49ers was exposed by the Ravens?" So, let me address the wake-up call first. So, the 49ers actually need a wake-up call. I mean, they lost 3 games in a row earlier in the season. They were playing on Christmas night, which was Monday night, in front of a national audience against the other team that everybody says is as good as you. They're in the driver's seat for the top seed in the NFC. I really don't think that they needed a wake call. I think that they were awake. I think they just had a bad game all around. So, to me, it was just a complete breakdown. My concern is that it seems like whenever things start getting bad for this 49ers team, they start to press, and they start to try to make things happen instead of just staying within the scheme, staying within the offense or defense and let things come to you. Um, I feel like they try too hard, and then they end up making things worse. So that, that's that's my thinking on that. As far as if the 49ers were exposed by the Ravens, I do not think that they were exposed, and here's why. First, they turned the ball over 5 times and had no take. You don't win games when you're at -5 in a turnover differential. They also had 10 penalties for 102 yards. That's bad. You're not gonna win too many games if you're committing that many penalties. The offense will still move the ball. They gained 429 yards, so they still so the Ravens defense didn't really figure the 49ers offense out. They didn't expose them. The 49ers offense still moved the ball. They just kept turning it the 49ers offense, or the 49ers team, in general still scored 19 points. 2 of those were from the defense, safety. With a defense like what the 49ers have, 19 points will win you a lot of games. See Jimmy Garoppolo. He won a lot of games with the 49ers, and they didn't score much more than that. And then the last thing is that even though they played so poorly, like I said before, they still had a chance to score a touchdown at the end of the game that would have put them within 7 points if they could recover an onside kick. So even though it really was technically a blowout, I think that the Ravens, they obviously started playing softer coverage on defense, but still, I don't think that the 49ers were exposed. Andy asks, was this a case of Kyle outsmarting himself when he should have just fed Christian McCaffrey with a 5-0 lead? Well, let's take a look at that. So they get the 5-0 lead, and here's what the next 3 drives looked like. They had 3 more possessions for the rest of the first half, and here's what it looked like. First drive after the 5-0 lead was a pass, a run for 3 yards, a pass, and then another pass that was intercepted. So 1 run and 3 passes. The second drive after the 5-0 lead was a run for 2 yards, a pass, and then a pass that was intercepted. So again, 1 run, 2 passes there. The third possession was the one that they scored the touchdown, the McCaffrey touchdown. They ran the ball for 3 yards, then they passed, then there was a run, which was a quarterback sneak. Then they passed, then they ran for 39 yards, and then they ran for the 9-yard touchdown. So on the 2 interception drives after the 5-0 lead, the 49ers ran the ball on each drive, but they only gained a few yards. But on the touchdown drive before time, they ran the ball out of the 5 plays. When the 49ers run the ball more than they throw the ball, they usually win. And so I think that you can say, that Kyle Shanahan outsmarted himself, but I think that a lot of it had to do with just how the game was unfolding, and they were taking what was coming to them because, again, they were moving the ball, other than those interceptions. Tony said, considering the pressure the Ravens' defensive line was mounting and discarding 2 horrible decisions by Purdy, what could Purdy have done differently, and what did he do well? Well, I think that he needed to calm down. When things started falling apart and he'd thrown, multiple interceptions, I think that, he looked good on the opening drive, but then made a bad decision, and then he just kept making some bad decisions, and I said it earlier that he just seemed a little bit, um, uh, kind of more, what's the word that I'm looking for? A little skittish maybe, which is not something we see from him. And so I think that he just needed to relax and let the game come to him, but he wasn't the only one. His teammates weren't playing very well either. He did make some nice plays out there, threw some nice balls, but again, he just needed to relax and maybe not try to force things. That play, um, the 3rd interception when he threw the ball to Kittle, it was intercepted. If he just would've thrown that ball away, then the 49ers punt, and the Ravens may not have scored after that on their next possession like they did, when that interception came. So I just think that, he's a gunslinger, and he's gonna take risks, and that's one of the things that makes him special, but I also think that he needs to, at times, just relax and maybe not take quite so many risks. Thomas asks, "I hate pass-heavy game plan. They started, at the Eagles game the same way and struggled early. Hopefully, there's something to be learned. How can San Francisco be better if these teams play again? Because I don't think they can contain Lamar." Well, first off, nobody's gonna contain Lamar Jackson. He's just that good. Um, the 49ers did throw the ball 46 times compared to only 18 rushes, but I don't think that was necessarily a Shanahan thing. I think that the game unfolded that way. When you get behind, you have to start throwing the ball. But anyway, that's not the recipe for success for the 49ers. They need to be near a 50-50 split. When they run the ball more than they throw, they almost always win. When they throw the ball more than they run, they normally lose. They'll win those games, but times they will lose those games. This is just a team that's built to run. Now they're throwing the ball more this year because of the weapons and because of Brock Purdy, but this is still a team that needs to be running a lot. They rely on that play action game a lot. So, but I don't think the 49ers defense did too bad against Lamar Jackson. He only had 45 yards rushing. 30 of those came on one run. Now, that was a bad run with multiple missed tackles, and it came at a terrible time for the 49ers defense. But still, I don't think that it was too bad. Nobody's gonna contain Lamar Jackson. I feel like the defense was too terrible on this night. But that's all that I have for today. It's going to be fun to see on Sunday how the 49ers bounce back. They're going to travel to Washington to play the Commanders. I think that I think they're going to come in angry. I think they're going to be focused, and the Washington has the I think it was the 31st ranked defense, the 32nd ranked pass defense, and like the 18th ranked run defense. So I would anticipate the 49ers putting up a lot of points and putting up a lot of yards. So it's going to be fun to watch. And hopefully the Eagles and the Lions will lose so the 49ers can go into week 18 not in a must win situation. That would be the best case scenario. But hey, thanks for joining me. If you wouldn't mind, take a minute to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening somewhere with your podcast, please take a minute to rate and review. Follow the 49ers Camelot Show.